Oh, yes, it is time for a fresh hour. CBS Sports HQ, Russ Thaler, Hakeem Dermish here with you. A big Saturday of NFL and college football looming, but Friday night marked another first for the college game.
The first 12-team college football playoff. The first round begins in South Bend. Notre Dame clashing with in-state rival Indiana. And it was all Notre Dame. After Hoosiers quarterback Curtis Rourke tossed an interception, Jeremiah Love takes it 98 yards on the very next play to make it 7-0 Notre Dame. Then after an Indiana punt, Riley Leonard drives the Fighting Irish down the field on a 16-play, 83-yard scoring drive that chewed up more than 9 minutes on the clock. Then in the fourth quarter, Leonard capped a 9-play, 78-yard drive with a 1-yard rushing touchdown, his 15th of the season, most ever in a season by a Notre Dame quarterback. The Hoosiers scored 2 late fourth quarter touchdowns, but not enough. Notre Dame holds on to beat Indiana 27-17. Notre Dame has won 11 straight games since their embarrassing loss to Northern Illinois. The Fighting Irish advanced to the quarterfinals to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day. And you know what they say. Good teams win, great teams cover. Notre Dame covers the number. They've covered 9 straight games, longest active streak in FBS. The total goes under as well. And Riley Leonard helping Notre Dame move on to the quarterfinals. CBS Sports HQ is presented by Belfour Property Restoration, here with former Louisiana running back Emory Hunt. And Notre Dame wins it 27-17. Got a little squirrely late there with 2 late fourth quarter touchdowns by Indiana. But this game really was all Notre Dame, Emory.
Yeah, they won with their run game. They won with their defense. And because Notre Dame did a great job in doing what they normally do to teams, it played out perfectly tonight. And again, because they got out the blocks early with their run game, they were able to slowly choke out Indiana, salt this game away, and did a great job for 4 quarters.
Notre Dame wins its first ever CFP game as they beat Indiana, the in-state rival. And how about the run game in terms of what they were able to get done? Jeremiah Love breaks off that big touchdown run. But then on the other side of it, Indiana's defense, #1 in FBS in terms of rushing yards allowed per game, 70.8. They couldn't stop the run.
It was all about Notre Dame's offensive line. We saw this early in that ball game, how well they did it in terms of like getting guys off the spot and kicking guys out. They did great going east and west, on the move. So we saw the full gamut for this Notre Dame offensive line. And we didn't even see Riley Leonard really start to run the football until in the second half. So he had time back in the pocket, was efficient in the passing game, but it was the offensive line, then the run game, and then Riley Leonard. So it was like 1, 2, 3, the foundation was set, laid, and Notre Dame got themselves a great victory.
Indiana gets 2 late touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Where was that? Where was that earlier in the game? But like, we're sitting here going, well, hold on a second. They get 2 touchdowns. Is that just Notre Dame's like letting them in? Is that just like, hey, we're relaxed and we're letting up?
That's exactly what it was.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
Where was that all game?
Well, that's the problem. We'll talk about that later and why Notre Dame did what they did in the passing game. But to me, you saw the pressure that Riley Leonard was, sorry, that Curtis Rourke was under all throughout the game. There was no run game to speak of for Indiana. And subsequently, every completion we saw from Riley Leonard, from Curtis Rourke, there was a blue jersey that was plastered to a wide receiver of Indiana. And to me, that's why they let up late. You saw the passing game start to work. You kind of wanted Curt Cignetti to do what he was doing late in the game, go up tempo, just win with your passing game, because it was not going to be a run game. And expect to see that tighten up next week for their matchup against Georgia.
When you look at what Riley Leonard did in this game, and he did it through the air and on the ground, you saw him drive them down the field. What has he meant to this team after that loss to Northern Illinois? Because it's as if he has taken this team on his back along with the defense that has gotten him to this point. Now 29 takeaways, which is most in FBS. This team is playing its best football at the perfect time.
He re-energized his football team, because if you have a quarterback that's struggling and he was part of the reason why you lost to Northern Illinois. To come back out of that game and play like he has played the rest of the way, now you have confidence. Hey, man, this is our guy. Look at how he improved since that loss we had. Now we can go back out there. We can trust as a defense. We can trust that if we get a stop, he's going to put the ball in the end zone. We can trust if we get some key plays and hang around in this ball game, he can drive us down the field and get a victory. So coming back and rebounding after that loss of Northern Illinois and playing like he did, earning that Senior Bowl invite that they talked about all throughout this ball game, that's big for not only this ball game, but big for him and also big for this team going on to the second round.
15 rushing touchdowns this season for Riley Leonard. That's most in a season by a Notre Dame quarterback. That's incredible what he's been able to do for Notre Dame.
Thinking about a Tony Rice and thinking about those guys that were dual threats in the 80s, the last time they won a national championship, to see him come in and do it this way, he helped balance out their offense because, yes, the run game is great. We talked about the offensive line. We talked about the dual threat, the duality of the backs that they have. But when you add the Riley Leonard ability to run the football, on top of that, you get the full gambit. So him being able to be a +1 in the run game, but him improving as an efficient passer. I think he's more efficient throwing the football here at Notre Dame than he was at Duke when everyone was talking about Riley Leonard. And he had a great season at Duke last season, and coming into Notre Dame, healthy, ready to go, balance out the offense in the run game, and just does a great job with his leadership. We talked about that all throughout the game, all throughout the pregame. I like how he is being the ultimate weapon for the Fighting Irish.
You could give him your Player of the Game award. Time now for the Belfour Player of the Game. You could give it to Riley Leonard, or you could give it to a group of players. Who are you giving it to?
Interesting. I almost went Riley Leonard, but then I switched it because I was like, you know what? This secondary of Notre Dame is going to get my game ball, my players of the game, because of, again, what I talked about earlier. Indiana's passing game was the story coming in. We know about the quartet of receivers that they have. We know about their ability with the #1 CFL draft prospect and quarterback Curtis Rourke under center. What Notre Dame did to that passing game took that completely away. In the midst of taking the run game away, every completion Rourke had was plastered by a Notre Dame defender. And it wasn't until later in the ball game when they were down 27-3 or 27-9, that's when the passing game started to rack up some completions and some cheap yards. But this secondary, corners, safeties, locked things down, turned the ball over, helped them win this game outright defensively. So the secondary of Notre Dame, for what they did to this passing game, gets my game ball.
Before the CFP started, our first ever 12-team playoff, you picked Notre Dame to win a national championship. Why do you believe in the Fighting Irish?
Balance. And here's why. And most people will look at star rankings or rankings in the top 5 or top 25, but you have to really look at how teams play, because we now know the conversation will always switch toward, well, who did they play? They didn't play nobody. Forget the schedule. Look at how they played those teams that they played. Look at how they beat the teams that they beat. And you look at what they do well, things that travel in football: run game, defense, and efficiency in the passing game. You don't have to throw for 400 yards in the passing game. You just have to make sure you don't turn the ball over and you be efficient with your throws. And in the run game, can you shrink the ball game? Can you force the other team to maximize their possessions? If they can't do that, guess what? You're winning in all 3 facets: offense, defense, and special teams. And that's the other part that they had going big for them tonight. They had a good return coming out of the halftime and also had some big plays in special teams as well. So for me, Notre Dame was the most balanced team. I still feel like they're super balanced. I like them to go start to finish.
They're going to be a tough out. There's no question about that. They are hot. They've won 11 straight games since their only loss of the season to Northern Illinois back in September. And Notre Dame chasing its 13th national championship in school history, first since 1988. As you take a look at the odds to win the Natty, and Notre Dame at +550. Oregon, the favorite right now, +340. The Ducks have never won a national championship in school history. They get going in the quarterfinals, and Notre Dame advancing to the quarterfinals, where they will play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Day.